May 18th, 2023.
Calling the Service Committee to order at 6 p.m. on May 18th, 2023. Members present are Steve Young, Brenton Potter, and myself, Sierra Sherrick, Chair as acting chair, and Terry Spiegel's absent. First up, do we have any public participation? Seeing that there is none, would anybody like to make a motion for the approval of minutes from April 20th?
So moved. Second.
We have a first by Mr. Young and a second by Mr. Potter. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Do we have anything for the open projects list?
Nope.
Any more public participation? Okay, seeing none, we're going to end this meeting at 6:01 p.m. Adjourn it, or yeah.
Health and Safety Committee, May 18th, 2023.
6:02 p.m. We'll call Health and Safety Committee meeting to order. Members present are Dan Wireball, Steve Young, Mark McKeever, and myself as chair. First item is public participation. Does anybody have anything for health and safety? You do?
Yeah, I do.
I need you to go to the podium. No.
I can do that. Dan Wireball, 1092 Martha Avenue. Anyhow, we kind of missed this, and it's kind of in my wheelhouse, or our wheelhouse. May is Mental Health Month, okay? And so I just wanted to let everyone know that I guess this week we heard about another mass shooting. It was the 225th. And somebody attacked someone with a baseball bat. We heard about that. And so I think mental health, I think a lot of us know that, but it's important. So this is Mental Health Awareness Month. I went through some facts. Suicide rate in the U.S. is double of that in the U.K. In 2019, Crawford County Public Health reported 13 suicides. At some point, this is going to affect all of us, if it hasn't already. And I guess, how do we remedy this? This is my last round here on council, so I'm going to use it as to get the word out, I guess. Just be aware, talk to people, the people you know, your friends, family, neighbors. And healthcare in general needs to be more accessible, I believe. Don't stigmatize just because you got some buddy down the street that acts different. Maybe you don't know what they got going on. And then use your vote to make these changes. Look at your politicians that what are they going to do to help this? We all agree that all this turmoil in the United States, mental health is the issue. Whether some say guns, some say this, some say video games, but it all boils down to mental health. So remember what Jesus said. He said, whatever you do for the least of me, you did for me. Or the least of my brothers and sisters, you've done for me. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Dan.
Since it's Mental Health Month, I just felt I needed to say something.
Thank you.
All right, carry on.
Any other public participation? You have in front of you the minutes from April 20th, 2023 for the regular Health and Safety Committee meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a first by Mr. McKeever and a second by Mr. Young. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Those are approved. Okay, on the noise complaint that we had, the gentleman that came and spoke to us about the dogs from 1010 Marion Avenue. What I kind of wanted to do was, I didn't have a chance to talk to the police chief yet, but I was going to ask the law director if he could maybe have a conversation with the police chief. Who are you pointing at?
Oh, yes, I did. And he said the best advice to give them, if they are barking at 12 a.m. or whatever, I did tell him to go out and tell them they got to do something with their dog, and I told him to write a ticket.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
500, somewhere in the 500 section.
yeah.
It is a nuisance and it is chargeable.
Yeah, so where I was gonna go with this was gonna end up right where that came from. I was gonna say, if you guys would have a discussion and see, I don't know that we need to make any changes. We've looked at this over the last couple of years, and I don't think we
just
decided
need
that there's really nothing we could do, different than what we're doing. You know, our law enforcement doesn't need to be running around with decibel meters and handling 52 noise complaints a day when they're overtaxed with other types of calls, was my first thought. When there are things on the book that we could utilize. So that's exactly where I was gonna go with this. So it sounds like, let's take that next step, and then maybe we'll throw this on the agenda in 4 or 6 months from now and see how that's working, and if we've heard anything else from then, and if we think that was enough. So thank you. And thank you. Any open projects you gentlemen would like to discuss this evening?
No, not for me.
Oh, no, no.
Okay. Any further public participation? If not, we'll adjourn at 6:06 PM.
Public Lands and Buildings Committee, May 18th, 2023.
All right, I'm going to call Public Lands and Buildings to order at 6:07 PM. Do we have any public participation? Seeing none, can I get a motion for approval of minutes from?
So moved.
Second.
First from Mr. Myers, second by Mr. Wireball. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Do I want to talk about the open projects list? Do we have any more public participation? Okay, then we're going to end at 6:08 PM. Adjourn.
Platting Committee, May 18th, 2023.
I'll call plating to order at 6:09. Members present, Kevin Myers, Dan Wireball, and myself, Chair. Harry Spiegel is absent. Is there any public participation for plating? Okay, do not see anybody for that. So we have before you the minutes for the April 20th Planning Committee meeting. Do I have a motion for?
I'll move to approve as presented.
I guess I'll second.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. Now, we don't have anything on the agenda. Is there anything from the open projects?
Nope.
Okay. Now, is there any public participation?
The one that's on there's a typo.
Yeah, it's already in legislation. We're up for the third reading. So, with that, I will adjourn at 6:10 PM.
Economic Development Committee, May 18th, 2023.
I'd like to call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order at 6:10 PM with members present. C. Aaron Sherrick, Steve Young, Mark McKeever, and myself, Chair. Do we have any public participation? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April 20th, 2023.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
A motion from Aaron, a second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any open projects we want to talk about? Any public participation?
6:11.
We will adjourn at 6:11 PM.
May 18th, 2023.
Okay, now I'll call Finance Committee to order at 6:12 PM, if that's what time it still is, I guess.
6:12.
Okay, 6:12. Any public participation for Finance Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from April 20th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
First from Mark, second from Kevin. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Budget and income taxes, next on the agenda.
If I may,
Yeah.
got a nice little sheet to read again, sorry guys. Last week I received an email from the mayor, like the rest of council, regarding the tax credit. I wanted to address a few statements in it. In it, he stated the recently passed levy will be used for additional police and fire raises, as well as equipment, also for the restoration of the $450,000 that was cut from the 2023 budget for pool, lands, buildings, etc. I just wanted to clarify that the levy will not go to the restoration of the budget for pool, lands, and buildings. The safety forces levy will not go to the pool or anything outside of safety forces. That will not and could not happen unless I was willing to go to jail, and surprisingly, I am not. I believe the mayor truly meant that passing the safety levy eased the stress on the general fund, possibly allowing for the restoration of the budget regarding our general fund expenses with revenues directly from the general fund. I just wanted to make sure it was understood that safety forces levy will only be paying for the safety forces. Now to the tax credit. As it stands, the safety forces levy tax increase only affects those working in town, increasing those taxed by 0.25%. The current legislation is written to give an 100% credit to out-of-town workers, so their taxes will not increase at all. If council chose, the credit could be capped for out-of-town workers at 2%. The percentage in legislation would have to be changed from 100 to 88.89% for that to happen. That way, both in-town and out-of-town workers would be paying the 0.25% increase. I have spoken to the income tax office, and they advised that it would be very difficult to get a prediction of how much revenue that would raise for the city because different entities all have different tax rates. I was informed we would have to see what happens after the first full year to truly gauge the outcome. Because of this, I am unable to verify any other projections that may have been given from outside of the income tax or auditor's office. Also, to be totally transparent, if we cap the credit at 2%, the 0.25% from out-of-town workers would not solely go to safety forces. It would be split like regular income tax, with part going to the general fund, safety forces, and streets. But keep in mind that the majority of the general fund already goes to safety forces. So for perspective, if the average median household income in Bucyrus is $44,068, the 0.25% increase would be $110.17 for this household. For an in-town worker, the increase would entirely go to the safety forces levy. But for the out-of-town worker with an income tax credit cap, that the 0.25% increase would be split with around $25 to $30 going to streets, but the remainder would still go to the general fund and safety forces. So just some large expenses coming up to consider: the engine for the fire department, cruisers for the police department, medical equipment and replacement for ambulance essentials, police and fire retirement buyouts. I know other capped amounts have been considered, so I'm including a list of all the different cap amounts along with the percentage the legislation would have to be changed to. So if we wanted to cap it at 1%, the legislation would need to be changed to 44.44%. If we wanted to cap it at 1.5%, it would have to be 66.67%. If we wanted to cap it at 1.75%, it would be 77.78%. And if we wanted to cap it at 2%, we would need to change it to 88.89%. And then I also just included some of the retirement buyouts we're expected in the next 8 years. We have 6 police officers who will be up for retirement. That would cost us a total of $283,759.52. And in fire, we have a total of 7. Their retirements will cost us $527,045.35. So we're looking at, over the next 8 years, $810,804.87 in retirement buyouts. That is all. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go right ahead.
piggybacking off of that, legally, so you could, the current credit is basically 100%, right? So legally, you could set it at what you want, and that doesn't go to the voters. That's an internal thing. And so I think that when we were talking about the levy, we intended to cap it at 2%, and then that 2.25% was going to be taxed in town, out of town, however you wanted to do it. But because the tax legislation that we passed and the credits are in different sections, I probably could have done it in one thing, but I didn't, so my fault. But it's not a difficult process, so the Finance Council could decide we want to cap it at 2%. So anybody working out of town can claim credits up to 2%. So that's your first decision. What number do you want to credit it? And then your second decision would be, if we cap it at 2%, is that then anything over 2% spread across the board, and that 0.25% goes 1% of that to the general fund, 0.5% of that to the street funds, and then 0.75% to the safety forces? Or do we just say we're capping it at 2% and everything above that, so that 0.25% that we'll have now is split equally between the current levies? I will say from a collection and management standpoint for the income tax department, it's going to be, it's not impossible and it's doable, right? They could say any credit that you have above 2% goes directly to the safety forces levy. The only issue with that is we have a lot of filers, and some of them file married filing jointly. And so if you have somebody that was married filing jointly and wife worked in town, so all 2.25% goes to the in town, but husband worked out of town, so he gets a credit, and then we have to figure out what that credit is, especially if you're on a payment plan, because then you're bringing in a $100 payment plan per month, and then we're trying to remember and flag that account and calculate it, this and that. So my opinion, I would suggest, after talking to the tax department, if we're going to cap it, which I think that we talked about capping it, if we're going to cap it, we just straight up cap it at 2%, and everything above 2%, they get that credit, but that goes back and is split those 4 ways to keep it tidy for bookkeeping purposes. Mrs. Schimpf from the tax department I mean, it's not impossible to do. It's just going to be very difficult. We still get tax payments from 2008 and 2009 and 2000, everything pre-2014, that we have to then split differently based upon our pre-existing 2014 tax status. So then you throw in another loop, it makes it more difficult. But legally and for legislation, we can have all of any tax credit issues can be passed by this council, don't have to go to vote, and can be done prior to that July 1st date. I think that's all I have to say.
That's a mouthful. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I'd say, and I probably
meant to keep it simple
for all of us, when we discussed this and voted on it, I know our intention at that time was that this 0.25% was going to be collected from all of the voters in town and out of town, and it would go strictly to safety forces. That was our intent. We missed it, apparently. And so I guess I know, in reading your words and hear what you said with talking with the tax department, that's going to put a burden on them to try to do that. But I think that's what our intention was. The other thing that I'll say is that we as a council made a promise to our constituents that, we weren't going to just go and do this until after the levy passed. And once the levy passed, we were going to see, is this 0.25% going to do this? And I know that you've explained we've got several expenses coming up that we're going to need to consider at some point, maybe tapping into part of that 2%. My question that I think I want to pose to you, and I don't know if you're prepared to answer yet, but are we in a position where you think that we can just cap it at the 2% right now and then readdress that next year for these future buyouts that we're looking at?
I believe that that's a good starting place if we think that's fair for what the voters were led to believe when voting for the levy. I think 2% is a good place to
And you
start.
can sleep well tonight if we make that decision?
Well, I don't know if I'm prepared to say, I think we'll survive for, a year. If it needs readdressed, we can always bring it back
I mean,
up.
I think my thing is, I understand the need. I understand that the financial need is there. But I also know that, when we made a promise to the people that we represent, that this is the steps we're going to take to do it, I feel like we owe it to them. They voted for this in good faith, that we put this forth this way. I want to fix it the way that we intended to do. I'd like to see that entire 0.25% go to safety forces if possible, before we then take the next step. And if we realize that we need to take the next step, then so be it. But I think we need to really...
It is possible too, and you could say any tax credit, any reduction in tax credit goes directly to the safety forces, which is, I mean, it's doable, it's possible, it's
That was the intention of this committee and this council.
Right. I'm just thinking through my mind how taxes are processed, but I think if you just cap it at 2% and say, anybody that's paying based upon not having enough credits, that amount goes, not anybody. I'll have to think about the language, but yeah, I mean, you could put it that way. I just have to make it so that when it hits the income tax department, and at the end of the day, they're processing out X amount of money, it's all leaving in the right fund, and they're not confused about this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm not trying to make their job any harder than we have to. I just, would you prefer that we request legislation now, or let you
We
research it
should,
first?
We're on a time frame.
I would ask that you do it now,
Okay.
asking me to cap it at 2%, and that any credit, anybody that, basic language, after you've paid, or after you've allocated all of your credits and you've exhausted your credits, any amount that you owe above the credits that you earn, go directly to the safety forces. And if we need to review or modify that, I'll come back.
That was
I
my
think she's
question.
got a question.
That was my question.
Okay.
I literally, I was like, I know we can word it that way.
Yeah. So I would like to make a motion requesting
Okay,
emergency
well-
legislation.
All right, let me get
Okay.
get it in my head right. So we're going to
Cap it at 2%.
Continue to give the 2% credit.
they get 2%
The
credit.
additional 1/4%, they're not gonna get the credit for, which is what our intention
Right,
was.
they don't get the credit for it. Okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But then you want
And
to
then it
put
goes
this
to
extra
safety
language
force.
in that goes right to the safety
Yeah.
forces. Well, I don't. Okay. Yeah, go ahead then.
So I'll make a motion requesting emergency legislation, requesting, exactly as Mr. Gernert explained, that we cap it at the 2%, and any additional collected above that 2% be distributed solely to the safety forces levy.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So, yeah, so we'll have to,
Yeah, and I think we're gonna have to look at that again, whether it be in 6 months or a year. Just-
yeah,
just
well,
look,
that
you know,
that
we're
was
gonna
my
need-
only.
We're gonna need almost $1 million over the next 8 years,
Just
just
for
for that, on top of everything else, so I get it.
Yeah, well, that was my thing, you know, this is just gonna be, yeah,
Thank you.
a short period. Okay, so, got that taken care of now, billet and manpower, is that you, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll take just, I'm gonna cover the lifeguards and then we'll let Mr. Dunn
Oh, okay.
cover the other departments. But, as we're trying to open the pool, right now we have to hire 7 lifeguards and we'd like to up it to 12. Only because, with the school passes, our max is 200 people in the pool, and for every 25 I need a lifeguard. So that's 8 right there just being at the pool. Plus someone, maybe I'm gonna have someone in the concession stand and someone in the office. So it couldn't, we might not have that many, which then I could adjust, but in case we do, we really need to up that to 12, just in case we need that many people. But I won't know that until we open and see how it goes.
As we were talking about earlier, do you see the need to increase it any more than that, just in case you find that you need a few more, and then we could adjust that back?
No, because we still got subs we can use, and/or we have a couple seasonal people we could hire to work in the concession stand. So I think between those 3 areas, we'll be okay. It's just this year, with these passes, I'm just not sure how many people we're gonna have in the
We
pool
won't know
all at
till we
once.
know, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask too,
Yeah,
can you
go
address
ahead.
the fire department portion of that too, before Mr. Dunn hits the street department portion?
Yeah, I think in your packet, I think we added
6 firefighters.
6
based
per the
upon
safer grant.
Yes.
As needed, based upon, because if
Yeah.
they come back and give us 3,
It
we
just,
just add 3.
Well, we just put
In the-
6 additional firemen,
the funding.
safer
would-
grant,
Yeah,
funding,
funding would
safer
come
grant
from the-
only.
So it's a new line essentially?
Yeah,
It is.
Okay.
yeah.
How does that, if I can continue, sorry.
Keep going.
If we do get that and then we keep them employed past the 3 years, we just have to make that change then at that point?
By then, we may have some.
Well, we'll probably have some retirees, but.
Right, but that's my point, is they won't be paid for out of that at the end of the 3 years. Well, would we just make
No,
that
but
change?
you'd have room in that, because there's already room for 12 firemen.
So you're not necessarily assigning employee number 5 gets on that line, you're just saying we have this.
We have
this much
allocated
room.
for 6 for the safe.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So, yeah, those 6 are an entirely new line funded directly through the SAFER grant. And then if the SAFER grant expires, then those positions would no longer be funded.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can employ
Yeah.
100, like we were talking. We
Yeah.
can employ 100, but if we don't have the money to pay 100, we're
Yeah.
not gonna,
But
we're not gonna
like-
hire 100.
You know, the auditor referred, there's gonna be some guys who are in a drop now, so they're gonna be gone in 2 to 3 years, so.
Right.
At that point, they would just be replacing those at that time, but
Gotcha.
that's, yeah.
Okay, we've got that. And then
Jeff?
Jeff Dunn is,
You wanna go through?
Well, I don't have the paper, I give it to Brian, so
So
just let Brian read it off and I'll.
Parks and Recreation originally was paid, or Parks Maintenance was paid 100% through Parks and Recreation. We would recommend, or the administration would recommend 50% paid through the Streets CM&R fund and 50% through the Parks and Recreation. We talked about firefighters, we talked about lifeguards.
Well, let's go back to the park.
What?
With that position, we just wanna split that pay,
Uh-huh.
because that'll save a little bit on the general fund, and the other half will come out of the street fund all year round.
And that position right now is not filled.
And we tried to save that money this year, and that was Jeff's idea, so I agreed, and we're only running 2 people at the park.
Under solid waste, we had 2 equipment operator driver floaters. Those positions are not filled and haven't been filled for a substantial amount of time, nor do we really know what that means. Correct?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, that position used to be 2 of them, and they haven't been used for 10+ years.
Right. So I deleted that. Skilled laborers remains the same for skilled laborers, but rather than being paid 20% through solid waste, 40% through streets, and 40% through sewers and drains, the recommendation would be to pay those 2 skilled laborers 100% through solid waste. And this is all under that's under the solid waste department.
Yeah, we're not adding anybody, just as people get their CDLs, they become the skilled labor, then I can use them, then, to drive the trucks and stuff, to the landfills and stuff like that.
And
Without having to mark it down every day on the timesheet.
And so currently there's 2 laborers and then 2 skilled laborers, and that would maintain the same.
Say it again?
We would not, so currently in the billet, there's 2 laborers and 2 skilled laborers.
Correct.
And we're not changing the number, just how it's paid.
We're changing it to 4 skilled laborers, 2 100%, and the other 2 divided.
Right, that's what we're doing.
We've only been over this
The
about
labor
4 times
positions will
today.
stay in there,
I got
but they
you.
won't, as they move up, we won't fill those jobs.
Yeah, I understand. So, yes, so then there would be another line for 2 skilled laborers that were paid 100% through the solid waste department.
Correct.
And then sewers and drains, there is a LADD laborers line with 2 of those. And we would just propose to change that to 2 skilled laborers.
And that's what it should have said to begin with, 2 skilled labor, I don't know what the L.
LADD,
is.
yeah.
But we're adding 3 instead of 2 equipment operators, we're adding a 3rd equipment operator. Everybody in that department does the same thing.
And 1 labor, right?
And we'll leave labor, but we will not fill it.
So it will be 3 equipment operators and
Yes.
1 skilled laborer.
Yes. But we're
And
not
that's
gonna
the
add any.
legislation we will present to you tonight if you guys ask for it.
Yeah, we're not gonna have 4 people in there. and those
I have
will
to
be
go
3.
no.
revise my revision based upon my revision, but yes. What else do you want?
Inconsequential, but under E, safety forces, firemen should be changed to firefighter. Under 2 different spots on there.
Would you like patrolman to be changed to patrol person?
Yeah?
Or patrol officer.
Patrol officer, yeah. I couldn't think what the patrol officer. Yeah.
Crawling right out of the 18th century. aren't they?
Yeah.
So then under fire, safety forces E, fire would be A, and then there's 12 firemen, so that will be changed to firefighter,
Firefighters.
right? And then under A, there will also be 6 firefighters, and those are paid under the SAFER grant. And then when you go under B, it'll say, instead of patrolmen, it will say patrol officers, once I finish that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that does the lifeguards, the SAFER grant for the firemen, firefighters, and the streets and sewers departments and all that. That's all I changed and/or am changing.
Good.
All right, do I have a motion to change the billet to what we just discussed?
What's your motion?
As an emergency,
So we have 2, billet and manpower.
for both.
Oh,
I'll second the motion to change the billet as well as the manpower ordinance as an emergency.
all right. First from Mark, second from Kevin, all in favor? Aye. I see no opposed, so we'll move on. Where am I at? Oh, here we are. Service Road, at the All Miller Service Road. Anybody know anything about that? Or has that been?
Yeah, that's the question that Vicki
resolved?
brought up Tuesday night.
Was it on the open project list before?
Yeah, so on January 18th, 2022, ARPA funds or monies were referred to the Finance Committee for discussions of Splash Pad, Unger Trail, All Miller Trail, referred to Finance. On January 19th, 2023, Service, Representative or Councilman Young made the motion to request legislation as an emergency for the All Miller Service Road project, seconded by Councilperson Potter. The motion passed by a voice vote. So council, through the service committee at that point, approved that project expenditure, but because they're not the finance committee, they can't actually approve expenditures, they can just approve a project. So then further on January 19th, 2023, Councilmember Myers made a motion requesting an emergency legislation authorizing the administration to go out to bid using the enterprise fund not to exceed $237, seconded by McKeever, and that motion passed by a voice vote. The subsequent, and I don't have that date written on these papers, but the subsequent council meeting, council passed as an emergency by a unanimous vote a piece of legislation out of the finance committee authorizing the safety service director to go out for bid for the All Miller Service Road or the Unger Park project or whatever you want to label it. And Ms. Dishon, you can shake your head, but All Miller Park's Unger Park, it's the same project because we're connecting All Miller Park and Unger Park. And the sewer that they're looking at, I'm not even sure if it's in either park because it's in the back of the north end of the water treatment plant. So those projects, although labeled differently, have always been that same project. It was an open project. It's always been an open project.
it was in the budget. It was in the budget, right? It was in
Yes, and the
budget,
money was
so I
already
don't even know
previously
why.
allocated in the budget.
It was allocated
And
in
it
the
was
budget.
just-
This is just all.
Jeff Dunn came up with the idea that, well, let's use, instead of using ARPA funds, because this is a service road, because we have to get back there and maintain this overflowing sewer to make the EPA happy, we'll just use service money so that we don't have to worry about the ARPA money. Sewer fund money, yeah. But it was previously allocated in the budget.
Does that, if I could, Does that mean that we didn't need to even do anything out of this committee?
We still needed to authorize Jeff to go out to bid
Okay.
for that project, but the
Right.
money was previously budgeted for projects such as
In
that.
finance.
In finance,
Right.
correct.
Okay, if I could just add some more
Okay,
information.
add
In
on.
response to Ms. Sherrick's comment at our last council meeting as to whether this was on open projects, I did some research. Back on January the 18th, 2022, council meeting, the mayor requested the referral of ARPA funds and how to spend them. He referred that to the Public Lands and Buildings and Finance Committee. Then on January 20th, 2022, the Public Lands and Buildings Committee met. The mayor at that time requested consideration for legislation to allow for going out to bid for the following: Splash Park, Unger Park Trail completion, and the All-Miller Park walking path. Myers at that time stated, they're not asking for money now, so a motion was made, seconded, and passed by voice vote for bids for Splash Park, Unger Park Trail, and All-Miller Park path. Now, I know that you think I'm picky, but we're not being consistent with the names. The mayor says, I want you to go out to bid for the following. But then when we come along and make a motion, All-Miller Park path, All-Miller Park walking path. I think this is where confusion is when, again, we're just not consistent, that the name continues on. Because now all of a sudden, All-Miller Park Trail, or All-Miller Park Trail completion, as the mayor referred to it, is now the All-Miller Service Road.
No, it's not. That's two different projects. He wanted to do a trail around
A
the.
walking path.
Walking path. This is not the walking path.
Correct.
We threw that out, right?
Or if.
It's not the
I meant
service
to say
road.
All-Miller Service Road. Did I not say that? Okay. What I meant to say is that the Unger Park Trail, as it was referred to before, or the Unger Park Trail completion, you're now referring to it as the All-Miller Service Road. Can you not see where someone could be confused?
Yeah. So,
But
But-
the reason we
I
made
came up
it
with a solution.
service road, it was to do two purposes. It was to be the trail, but it was also for us to have access to, that was the only viable way to kill two birds with one stone. Have access to those sewer overflows so that the EPA won't ding us hard by us being able to get there because they've never been serviced. Efficiently.
So then, when you ask for legislation, to go out to bid for the All-Miller Service Road.
Which is the trail, to connect with Unger Park. They're all connected. The drawing from McKeever Associates shows that it's all one.
Yes,
and
but
ours was
it's
gonna
not
be made.
written in the paper. Okay, but let me finish, if I
Okay.
may. So the first time this project, which you say is one and the same, that the Unger Park Trail is the same, excuse me?
It's the All-Miller Service Road. And then,
that's the
but
same.
Unger Park is doing, that's coming from a different direction, right?
No, you're telling me that Unger Park Trail is the same as All-Miller Service Road.
Correct.
And you're saying it's not.
They come together.
But you're saying it's not the same project.
It is.
It's all the same project, but there's a trail and there's a service road. And the service
Actually,
road is gonna be used as a
It's
trail.
actually a combination of both. It's all in one. It's gonna be a service road for the city of Bucyrus. It's gonna be a trail for the Unger Park.
Park District is doing their part, and we're doing a part, and they're connecting.
Park District's doing the Unger part.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're doing the
All
Miller
Miller
Service
Service
Road
Road.
portion.
Correct.
But when they brought it to us, they said, okay, the Park District is doing this, it's a good time for us to do this, and we'll have this nice trail.
I would say, it was the name, our part of the name changed when it became a service project from the water
Yeah.
treatment line.
The Stormwater Fund.
That, we had to change our name,
Yeah.
our name was part at that point.
I don't know if we had to, but we did.
Well, because it covered what we were doing with the money.
Yeah.
Right, but I guess my point was, we had Dylan here who explained exactly what the project was, and then the council, the committees, through the service committee as well as the finance committee, said that, yes, we are agreeable to expend up to $237,000 on the project that Dylan has just described to us, which isn't a walking path around the outside of All Miller or isn't some sort of bridge service structure. It's from Nevada Road back to roughly the Sandusky River and over towards the Friendship Bridge, so that we can get I don't know how big the truck is, but a big truck in there. And that's the project that has been discussed, that has been approved by council. Yes, is the name probably confusing and conflagrated? Sure, we should have come up with a Phase 4 project or something because of how many times it's changed. But the project has been specifically identified, and the legislation specifically approved the service road that Dylan described, which would go from Nevada Road back towards the river and then come, yeah.
Due east along.
Come east along the river. And it
Kevin's
costs
got it.
$89,000 more or something because we have to build it up to get there.
Yeah, can you shed any light on this, Kevin?
Well, no, I can't, but what I do want to say is I do have a suggestion just to offer to you guys to alleviate this going forward. I know we may still have some clarification on this particular instance. I was watching in other municipalities' council meetings in the last couple of weeks, and one of the things when they do a project, they number the project, and I think it's done by date, so like 23-201. Similar to what we do for our ordinances and things. And when there's a project and it's referred to in all of the legislation by that number, so that might be something that we can consider going forward, that we number a project rather than if we use different words, whether we said Unger Park or All Miller Park, whatever. I think the consensus is we all thought we were talking about the same thing, but to your point, we use different phrases, which does make it confusing. So that's just a suggestion that maybe going forward that we can do.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ran into this problem until now. We've always had the name of the projects were correct, and this one just happened to change of what we're doing. So I mean, we can number them, but typically, like in our budget's Dudley Street. It's Dudley Street. That's what we're doing with it. It's the All Miller Service Road or whatever it was called when it started. We just need to make sure we do a better job of making sure it stays the same. We can number them or do whatever you want, but for 12 years, I don't think we've had that problem.
I think that this particular municipality, the reason they did that was because they're huge compared to us.
Yeah.
They're probably doing 400 projects a year, so that makes sense. But it was just a thought.
I question, back in 2022, when it was first referred, that is the ARPA funds, the mayor asked that they be referred to the public lands and buildings. Then when we turned around and made the referral of the All Miller Service Road, that went to the Service Committee. But if they're the same
That was after
project-
Mr. Dunn came up with the solution to not use the ARPA funds, but rather use, that's when that occurred.
Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to get.
Going through your bullet points.
Well, I'm just sitting here thinking, I just have to wonder how many people out in the public, I mean, the transparency. I can't believe I'm the only one that's confused by this, but who knows, maybe I am. I noticed on the legislation that was prepared, that would be the last piece that was prepared, which I don't have here in front of me. Oh, wait a minute. 206, 2023, resolution. That has, up at the top, that it has the Finance Committee. I erred when I spoke at the last council meeting, and I stated that when it went to the Service Committee, the Miller Service Road, this, not Service Committee, yeah, Service Committee, that the Service Committee requested legislation to advertise for bids. And I stated that this request for legislation should not have been made by the Service Committee, that the committee's responsibility was to approve the project only. That's incorrect. That was an incorrect statement on my part. If you look at, our codified ordinances, I think it's our 113, when we talk about ordinances and resolutions, we have the agenda that we follow on, there's a sponsor. And the sponsor of the legislation, at least it always was, the 30-some years I worked as the law clerk, the sponsor was the committee that the project item, what have you, was referred to. Now, if that project also involved money, then the Finance Committee was to also be involved with a referral, because the sponsor would request the legislation basically contingent upon Finance's approval of spending the funds. And that was carried out correctly when you folks did the Resolution 205, 2022, because the sponsor at the top was the Public Lands and Buildings. Now, I noticed on this piece for 206, 2023, we have the Finance Committee. And I believe that should be the Service Committee.
But did the request come from Service for legislation, or?
Yes, they requested legislation.
Yeah.
And then you folks also turned around and requested
And did the same thing,
legislation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe, again, going back to if you had a project number, not to say that you need to change how you're doing things, but that might clarify, well, we've already addressed it. I know we already knew that we did it, but we need to do a better job of saying whose job is this, that it's not being done twice,
Right. But I mean, we still need to attend to the Resolution 206, 2023. Do we not? Because initially, that All-Miller Service Road was never referred to Finance. It was just referred.
It was in the budget.
It was referred when the mayor made that initial one in January of '22. It morphed into a different name, but the project itself was referred. I feel comfortable saying that the project itself was referred.
Okay. I think that'll just maybe be some things that we can look next council term. We're going. Thank you.
All right, All Miller Service Road,
AKA
Unger Park Trail,
project number 1.
project number,
Well, part
So-
of it too is like All Miller and Unger connect, and it's a combined project.
yeah.
And so if you call it All Miller, some of it's in All Miller, some of it's in Unger. But I feel like
This project, this particular project we've been discussing,
Project A.
are we ready to, so, did we need to do anything? Or have we done it?
No.
I think we're covered because it was an open project, even though it was under a different name.
Yeah.
Because when we
All right.
switched the name, we should have probably switched it in everything, but it was still the same project.
I'm good.
So you guys comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Are you covered though with the sponsor name at the top of the legislation that's been passed?
Yes.
It's passed and we've got the bids back and everything, right?
Or May 24th.
May 24th.
Yeah, next week.
Bids are normally-
Moving on. Ordinance accepting the proposal for replacement page. This is for the,
Okay, so this is for the codified ordinances that are supposed to, I'm supposed to submit all the legislation from the previous year that the codified ordinance is changing to the Walter Reed Drain Company, which is now bought out by American Legal Publishing, but whatever. So I did that, got them back, and then Ms. Dishon said, Susan, you need an ordinance to pay the bill and to accept these changes. Did not know that. So hence why this is on the agenda, so we
okay,
can
so,
have
yeah, so I
legislation
guess
for
we
it.
need, I guess I just need a,
So I pulled 36-20, okay, this was not done at all last year. So
Right.
I submitted 2 years' worth, okay?
oh,
Yeah, so 36-2021 I pulled, and this is for an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the
Right.
Bucyrus codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. So Vicki's saying we need 2 pieces of legislation, but I could only find the one, Vicki.
There's the one to accept the proposal, because normally you go out, you let Walter Drain or whomever, Walter Drain,
Yeah.
whatever, and they gave, and you said, this is what we have, replacement pages, to update the codified ordinances. That, once they gave you the proposal, then council approved the proposal, and then you ordered the updates. Then once the updates came, council approved the replacement pages, or the updates that they received. I mean, yeah,
And was the paying the bill then included with that last one?
no.
Or is that, again, separate?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say no, but I know there's 2 pieces.
Okay.
One to accept the proposal, and one to accept accept the proposal, that would be the first one. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether that continued on to say.
But did we bypass that already?
Yeah.
So in
Pretty much.
this year, we just need one to accept or approve the pages and to pay the bill.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've gotten the replacement pages.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of questions I have about this, so. Are there books left?
Is this time sensitive?
No, I mean, other than we owe a bill.
I mean that because do we have time for you to do a little more research to find out precisely exactly what we need so that we're not requesting stuff that we don't need and we don't miss something that we did need?
Well, that's why I pulled the legislation.
Okay, so
old
you
one,
feel you've got everything that we need?
That I could find, yes.
Okay, so you need an ordinance that approves the replacement pages for sure. We don't need one though to accept the proposal because the proposal's already, you've
It's
taken
done.
that step already. Do we need to retroactively approve that or do we just?
Well, so you've sent it out and they've sent you a proposal,
I got the pages back and everything, the new ones.
the proposed pages.
It's already changed on the
It's been done,
website.
Yeah.
It's done.
So do we need to retroactively
Just
accept
saying.
the proposal as well?
I think we did that before, that we had to do.
We can. Then you can do a warrant authorizing the auditor to pay whatever.
Okay. Yeah, do we need 2 pieces or can we do that all in one piece?
You can do all of the accepting the proposal retroactively and that in one piece, but you can't do the financial piece in that same
Okay.
piece.
Okay, I'm not sure the financial piece is in here at all.
Do you have the bill yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess then, I'll ask for legislation that retroactively accepts the proposal back to the date of the proposal. Which, do you have that in front of you?
The date.
When they called
Do you
me
have
or
the
when I sent
proposal?
it.
Do you have the proposal back, a written proposal back from them?
no, it's already done.
No,
There was
I
no
sent
proposal.
everything.
So we didn't get a proposal?
No.
Well, then we don't need to accept something we don't have.
Yeah, I sent all the legislation that changed the codified ordinance for the last 2 years to them. Each piece of legislation, I just said it in 6 different,
So it sounds like we just need one piece approving the replacement pages. In this instance, there is no, I'll request emergency, it doesn't need to be emergency. I'll request regular legislation approving the replacement pages from 2021 and 2022.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
And then we need one for the bill, correct?
I don't know. I know it's in the budget because there's a line
It's in the
item in
budget.
there. So I don't know.
If it's in the budget, I think you just do a PO for it, right?
That's normally what I normally do.
Okay, then we're
So
good.
your PO is going to be dated after the invoice, so that's going to be we
That's-
have to do one of those
Yeah.
special pieces of legislation.
So will you bring that to us later, or do we ask
Yeah,
for
I
that
can do
now,
that.
or?
I will have to refer it at a regular meeting to then.
This is a regular meeting, we can refer it tonight.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I can do that.
All right,
at the-
so you want a,
Request a purchase order to be retroactively dated to when,
to the date of the bill?
yeah,
4/13,
for
2023.
not Walter Drain.
It's
American Legal Publishing.
now,
Okay.
but
What's-
it's Walter Drain.
What's the dollar amount?
$2,434.84.
in the wrong business.
All right, so I'll make a motion requesting the purchase order be retroactively dated to the date of April 13th of 2023 in the amount of $2,434.84 to American Legal Publishing.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Kevin, a second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're good on that? Okay. I think some of that confusion may come from, we're doing more on the computer. No, I think before, you'd have to send a proposal. They'd send it back, all this. Now we can just do it zippity, and it gets done quicker. So anyhow, so is that everything? All right, any open projects? Nope. Nope. Any more public participation?
So because we didn't have to do anything, we're not going to have to have a council meeting this evening?
We do, yes.
Yeah, manpower and bill it.
Manpower and bill?
No,
So I'm going to adjourn at whatever time it is.
It is 7:01.